Things are looking a little better for President Biden. Since we last checked in on this, Joe Biden has improved his standing in Michigan, a very key state to his reelection. He's made improvements in Nevada and in North Carolina and in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Look, he's above water for the first time in our survey since October in Wisconsin. This is positive forward movement. But look, he still faces a very tough electorate this year. We've seen some signs of improvement in terms of the favorability rating, how folks are thinking about the economy, the kind of news voters are taking away about the president. But in a number of these states, he's still trailing President Trump.
And to be tied in Pennsylvania, let's be honest, Eli, this is home for Joe Biden. He's been to that state, I think, more than any other since he's been in office. He went up there to drop his budget. He's delivered some very important speeches. He calls Scranton home, whether you buy into that narrative in the biography. Is that the first place the campaign needs to get to work?
I mean, he spent a tremendous amount of time there. It's like a running joke that he goes there every month. He goes there a lot. It's an important state for him. It's an important state for Democrats. I think one thing that he's going to need to lean into there is convincing voters that the economy at the local level has actually improved. It's one of the worst states right now. We saw a trend across all of these states we tested where economic sentiment, the way people are thinking about the direction of the economy, has gone on the rise across the swing state map. And it's been driven by perceptions of their local economy. Pennsylvania is one of the states where that is still underwater. The president has an opportunity here to try to make that case, but right now it's not breaking through to the same extent that it is in places like Wisconsin, where he finally has a lead over Trump.
Mm-hmm. Something to be said about peaking late in this game, Eli. If you're Joe Biden and you're looking out across the next 8 months here, you see people feeling better about the economy now, knowing that interest rates might be coming, knowing that you have twice as much cash on hand as Donald Trump. When you look to, I guess, across the valley here to November, if you're this campaign, do you not see the stars aligning?
I think that it's early in this campaign. I mean, a good chunk of voters a couple of months ago didn't even think that Donald Trump would be the nominee, or they weren't so sure. A number of voters still say that. The American people are not paying attention to this, or at least hadn't been paying attention to this, to the extent that Washington is. I think we're seeing signs that more voters are paying attention. I think that folks are taking note of, as Biden would cast it, the threat of another Trump presidency. That is something that he's going to need to rely on very, very heavily to try to rebuild that anti-Trump coalition that got him the White House in the first place. It wasn't really a pro-Biden coalition that got him across the finish line 4 years ago. It was an anti-Trump coalition. And you're starting to see signs in places like Wisconsin that is materializing. Some of this is driven by independent voters who are far more likely to cast their vote, if they're supporting Joe Biden, as a vote against Donald Trump than a vote for the incumbent. This negative energy activates folks, and the Biden campaign is going to need to spend a lot of time in the coming months to try to revive that as it builds up perceptions of its own handling of the presidency.
Spending time with Eli Yokley at Morning Consult. Eli, I'm really struck by something that everyone seems to agree on here, progressives as well as Donald Trump supporters. Eat the rich. This is something that came out of the poll here. Those 69%, those you polled in 7 swing states, favor higher taxes on billionaires, even Americans making over $400,000 a year. What else can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it turns out that the vast majority of the American people like taxing the rich. It's very popular. And by the way, it's very popular among Trump supporters, too. I mean, over half of Donald Trump supporters support taxing people who make over $400,000. A good number of them, about a third, which is a lot of Republicans, support raising taxes on corporations. This is the two major parties maybe finding a place of agreement on a populist policy, which is maybe the American people think the rich are making too much money right now. We saw some of this emerge during the inflation discussion early in Biden's presidency, where a lot of voters were blaming corporations for being greedy. Yeah. I think this is an underlying current in American politics that Donald Trump has had a lot of luck allowing the Republican Party to tap into. It's where I think people normally are with the Democratic Party. But if you could see if he moves forward in this campaign and maybe try to to offer some compromises to restore his 2015 tax cuts for all Americans, maybe a place of possible common ground in the next presidency.
Well, how does that help Trump, though? This is the man behind the 2017 tax cuts. He's a billionaire. This is actually what we're talking about. He wants to lower the corporate tax rate, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it helps Trump in the sense that a good number of people associate the Republican Party more with people like them than they did before he took over. He is rebuilding a populist, regardless of his wealth and his billionaire status. He has helped rebuild the Republican Party's brand as a party that cares more about everyday Americans. The other thing that stands out in this, by the way, is the American people seem inclined to be on board with some of his tariff discussion. He's talked a lot about raising tariffs on some foreign imports. The American people seem to be there. That seems like something that might raise costs for everyday folks, but this going after big business, this more protectionist bent in America, this populist bent in American politics is something that is becoming a bit of a unifier this year.
That's pretty remarkable. I guess the populist election, even if it doesn't always agree with one candidate or the other, you go with the message. Eli, we've been talking a lot about third parties lately. No Labels is scratching, looking for a candidate here. RFK Jr. is trying to make news. He put up a running mate today, even though he's only on a couple of ballots. Is this going to be a factor in polling and actual election results in November?
I mean, some of these states are so close. I mean, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are tight races. A couple points here and there matter a lot. I think what stood out in this latest survey is that RFK does pull from President Biden, along with folks like Cornel West and Jill Stein. It's going to be something to watch. I mean, RFK keeps getting more popular in all of these surveys. There's not been much of an effort against him yet, and we're still going to see what kind of ballots he can get on. But, the presence of some of these third-party candidates, especially when so many voters dislike both of the major party candidates, is obviously something that both sides need to watch. And right now it does appear to be a bit of a challenge for President Biden.